All right, as promised, I'm going to take apart this pneumatics. So this is the front pneumatics off the front of an autococker that I took apart in our last video. What I'm going to do now is take apart this whole setup. So I think I mentioned it in the last video, but basically air comes from the main body, comes into here. Let me zoom in. How do I do that? Well, I don't know how to use this GoPro, apparently. Just kidding, it's hung up here above me and I can't zoom in from my phone in a way that I know how to do, so I'll just hold this up. Air goes into here. There are some ports on the other side of this to allow this block to fill with air, go to this pressure regulator, which has an adjustment knob on the front, flows through this tube over to this three-way valve, which when you mess with the trigger mechanism, determines where this little rod in here sits and determines where the air goes. So it can either go to the back side, which will pull the bolt forward, closing it, pushing the paintball into the breech, and then you fire the paintball and that pushes the cocking, or not the cocking rod, on this trigger mechanism down here. It pushes the rod forward. When it moves forward, it opens this valve here, if I understand this correctly. Opens this valve here, pushing this ram backwards, recocking the weapon for you. Okay. So these are just little barb fittings. They're all brass, this pneumatic tubing. Hopefully when I put air to it and seal it all off, it doesn't blow up in my face. I do have some extra tubing on hand. All right. Now, I, for the life of me, cannot get this out. I don't know if it's just not supposed to come out. I don't want to pull it out because I don't want to mess it up. There's threads on the back. Surely it's supposed to come out because there's an O-ring on here. May have to do some research on that. Oh, no, looks like, oh, maybe not. Yeah, it's not unthreading. I would have thought it would have just pulled out of there. But it's not. So, what are we going to do? I'm going to take all these little barbs off. Which I didn't want to do, but we're going to have to. Little tiny brass fittings, and my pliers here are probably way overkill for this, but it's about the smallest I have, since most of my life growing up, tools I needed were a little larger, working on vehicles, not tiny brass fittings for paintball guns. But they're relatively easy threaded fittings to come out of here. I may at some point have to replace these. Guess I need to look up how much air pressure is really running through the front end of this system. this unthreads. Okay, take off this. Ooh, can I leave that? I don't think so. Okay, I'm gonna take out this little bitty set screw here. Set it up to the side with that other little bitty set screw. Take it off the post. Alright, we have a set of a tiny little retaining ring in there. I'm not sure I have. So I got these retaining ring pliers, extra tips, but I don't think I have a small enough tip in there. So I'm going to resort to other means and use a pick to do it. I don't know how well you can see that, if at all. My other light has died. Flashlight. There's a little retaining ring on the front of that. A little too much reflection there. You don't want to pull it too hard, because if we deform it, it won't go back in the way we want it to later. Alright. Tiny retaining ring out. Front of this guy. As soon as I get her out here. Okay. Seal on the front probably needs to be replaced. Post that sits inside that determines which one of these gets air. How does that work? Interesting. All right, so there's two tiny little O-rings here that I definitely don't have on hand. Body of the three-way valve. There is another piece down in here, another retaining ring. I'm not gonna mess with that. I don't know if there's any reason to take that out. And it's pretty deep in there. Okay, still a mystery. All right, let's take off these two. One. Two. And this whole thing. Comes off. Yes, I know this is the wrong size, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to round it off. All right, there's another O-ring. Okay, and then inside here is a ram that again has an O-ring right in the middle. And two kind of bumpers. I imagine that's just so this when this thing kind of slams back and forth, we don't mess up some stuff. So I'm going to set all of this over here. Now, the reason I know this has to come out, even though I can't figure out how, unless This comes off of the front in some way. There's an O-ring here, and I can't take off this pressure regulator with this guy hanging out in the way. It doesn't seem to thread out. I don't want to just pull on it. Surely it's not just an O-ring holding it in place. What is that? No, because the O-ring's back here. So I suspect it has to go out the other way. But how? I don't know, I'm gonna have to do some more looking on this. Which means I can't take this side off, which is probably okay. There may be some sealing that needs to go into that. Adjustment rod. Alright, I think that's about all I can do to take this apart. Except for this little block in here, which does nothing but seal this whole body. Yeah, it just goes into there, it goes into here. You know, I'm not even sure that this, does this do anything? I'm not sure about that. This may just be a chamber to allow that to go through there. So curious why this doesn't come out. But it's not why you tuned into this video. You wanted to see me take it apart, or I wanted you to see me take it apart. Either way, that's been done. So I've got some parts to order. I'm gonna need a full rebuild kit for the O-rings. So I will probably order that and get it in, and that way we can rebuild this guy, and then I'll have to play with timing, because I've heard that's the worst thing to have to deal with. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.